begin, I will briefly review the procedure we will follow for this public hearing. Please remember, this is an official proceeding prescribed by Idaho Code. This proceeding is taped as part of the official public record. We ask that each speaker state your name and place of residence before giving testimony. The hearing will begin with the applicant's statement, which in this case, the applicants are James Byler and Jennifer Nylander. Then the floor will be open to allow the comments from members of the public. First, from those who are in favor of the proposal. Next, from those who are neither in favor nor opposed to the proposal. And finally, from those who are opposed to the proposal. After each person speaks, members may ask questions of that speaker. After each member of the public has had the chance to speak, the applicant will be allowed to make a closing statement, to review any concerns, answer any questions, or clarify the proposal. Again, members may ask questions. Once this process is concluded, I will close the hearing and no further testimony will be taken. At this time, the commission members will discuss the application and work toward reaching a decision. Are there any questions on the procedure? I now will open this hearing for the county commissioners to consider the road and bridge road standards variance application 4-2023, an application for variance to Boundary County Road Standards Ordinance 2020-2 regarding a proposed approach location requested by applicant James Byler and Jennifer Nylander. This is a proposal upon which the county commissioners will render a decision. Present are Commissioner Wally Kazart. Do you have any? Okay, this is the first time I've ever done this. So, is there any member of this commission who has a conflict of the interest and cannot participate in this hearing? If so, please step down. Ben?
No.
Wally?
No.
Seeing none, we will ask for a staff report.
Okay, so this is a road standards variance request for a proposed approach to be located on Homestead Loop by James Byler and Jennifer Nylander, who is representing Tractor Supply. The project is for approach location that doesn't meet road standards ordinance. Boundary County Road Standards Ordinance Section 3.3B sets 330 feet for a distance from an existing access or the intersection of two public road right-of-ways. Homestead Loop is a minor collector road, so the 330 feet requirement applies. Road Standards Section 3.3F sets the site distance for new approaches entering arterial, collector, or local roads to be a minimum of 300 feet and a minimum site triangle of 40 feet. So the proposed approach requires that verification. Page 2 shows an aerial of the vicinity. The analysis factors that Road and Bridge considered. So you have the parcel number and the legal description. The acres is 5.99 acres. The proposed use for the approach is a shared approach with two proposed uses. One is a secondary approach to the proposed Tractor Supply store. The second is an access to a proposed new parcel. And Mr. Byler proposes to divide this parcel through a planning and zoning parcel division process dependent upon access approval first, and this proposed approach would provide access to that proposed new parcel as well. That parcel would also be zoned commercial light industrial, but it is unknown what that new parcel will become. Planning and zoning has provided the following information for me. The zone district designation is commercial light industrial, no density minimum. However, per planning and zoning, there has to be sufficient area to accommodate the use and provide the level of services. The surrounding zone is also commercial light with rural residential, 5-acre density minimum. Industrial does not have a density minimum. Surrounding land uses are a mix of residential, commercial, industrial, and agricultural, anywhere from 0.487 acres to 30 plus acres. Planning and zoning identified zoning overlays. The airport overlay area was identified. There's no wetlands and it's not within the city's area of impact, and there's no flood hazards. And as we discussed earlier, the two sections that we're considering is no new access on a collector route being closer than 330 feet, and to verify that there's site distance and a site triangle. The description of the proposed approach is located 76 feet south of address 157 Homestead Loop. Its proposed approach would be located 339 feet north of the proposed primary approach that is discussed in variance application 5-2023. And this proposed approach is also located 293 feet north of a previously approved approach at address 87 Homestead Loop. List of options are shown for the Board of Commissioners. Rather you approve it with conditions, possibly including dependent on a parcel division, or you deny it. Considerations for Road and Bridge comments. Road and Bridge would recommend a shared use approach located farther south on the parcel. An approach width could also be wider than the 28 feet that's shown on the drawing plan. A wider approach, you would be able to provide truck and vehicle traffic use with plenty of room. And it would also provide one designated approach onto Homestead Loop. The average daily traffic count from 2019 on Homestead Loop is 686 a day. We did verify that there is 300 feet of sight distance, both north and south of the proposed approach, and a sight triangle 40 foot can be achieved. Engineering studies, a traffic impact study could be required. It doesn't seem to be warranted with consideration of road and bridge recommendations for approach locations. So that would be dependent on your review. As far as topography and geography of the area around the variance goes, Homestead Loop begins as about a 150-foot straight road, and then it curves to the north and continues east and gradually climbs as it goes north. The geography is residential. There are subdivisions and commercial with some agricultural land. Exhibit 2 shows driveways in the area. It is a chip sealed roadway and it's 35 miles per hour. We did receive some public comment, so we can go through that. It's also included in your analysis as Exhibit 5. I've summarized them in our staff report. And I just would like to note that if there is a comment from Road and Bridge that it pertains to us, we've answered it. There are other comments that were stated in the public comments that would be under the jurisdiction of the board, and they're out of Road and Bridges. One concern was for the safety of the roadway with vehicles and pedestrian traffic and the increase of traffic volume. Road and Bridge is concerned with the safety of all users of the roadway, which is why this hearing is being held. But per the road standards ordinance, a variance request is an option available to everyone. If this one concern was hours of operation and delivery traffic for the proposed tractor supply. Planning and zoning is over the question for hours of operations, and the guidelines is part of their ordinance. Road and Bridge is providing an analysis and recommendations regarding increased traffic and impacts to the road and safety as we go forward in the staff report. Another concern stated was a decrease in property values. To answer that, it's not under Road and Bridge's jurisdiction. Residential community, question of allowing commercial. Planning and zoning and the commissioners are over.
Hello? Who's on the line?
Hi, there are three of us here from Jade Consulting. This is Marcinko.
Okay,
This is Michael Freed with Jade Consulting.
I'm sorry, say that again.
My name is Michael Freed and I'm with Jade Consulting.
Okay.
We have two others from Jade Consulting.
Okay. We just started and we were doing the staff report right now. And we're gonna continue. Is that okay?
Okay, yeah, absolutely. No worries at all. We will listen in, and if y'all need anything from us, just let us know.
Okay.
So this is Renee Nelson with Road and Bridge, and I'm just kind of going through the staff report we provided for the commissioners. And we're going a summary of public comments that we received. Another public comment that we received was the road not being designed for high volume traffic. Homestead Loop has been classified as a minor collector road, and a collector road, both major and minor, are roads designed to connect local roads and arterials. They're designed to provide mobility at lower speeds and short distances than arterials. US 95 would be an arterial. They balance mobility with land access. So Homestead Loop provides access to all of the side roads off of it, traffic for Moon Shadow Road and all the side roads off of it, as well as Hillcrest roads and roads that are accessed from Hillcrest. This is why it's a minor collector. So that's the public comment. Then we received some staff comments regarding the application. So planning and zoning, the summary of their comments, which are included after the public comments in your packets. They said the parcel is zoned commercial light industrial. The applicant applied for a conditional use permit and a public hearing was held. The permit was approved and it contained conditions including approved approaches from Road and Bridge and the requirement to submit a parcel division application for the proposed land division prior to the permit being issued. A Tractor Supply store was a permitted use and would not have required the conditional use permit except for the square footage. The site is within the airport overlay area and the airport provided comment, and this all went to planning and zoning. The addressing coordinator's summary of comment was they were concerned about it being close for the line of sight, which we do have sight distance. And then they asked the question if it will require an address change from the 87 Homestead Loop, and will that address be voided, which was part of planning and zoning's application 20-0170. I would say that would still be determined. The assessor, we were pending any comments, and the assessor's mapper didn't provide any comments. As far as Road and Bridge, we do have a couple of comments and then some points for consideration for commissioners. Our recommendation was to require a shared approach location at a point that is 330 feet north of the center line of Hillcrest Road. And these were our reasons why. If the approved approach location was at the 330-foot mark, the approach could be used for all egress and ingress to both the proposed Tractor Supply store and the proposed parcel that Mr. Byler would retain. Since Road and Bridge does not know the proposed use of the new parcel being retained, and it is also in a commercial light industrial zone, This would keep traffic access to one approach to lessen the impact on Homestead Loop Road users and make it a centralized approach location that has good sight distance and safety benefits for vehicles, truck traffic, and pedestrian. Homestead Loop provides access to and from residences, commercial businesses, 6 subdivisions, a school, a church, and agricultural enterprises. The proposed drawing showed the 28-foot approach requirement minimum for commercial approaches. If the permitted approach was at the 330-foot mark, that was allowed to be up to 45 feet wide, which would increase the width to allow both truck and vehicle traffic using one approach. That was our recommendation. We had a couple other points for consideration. You could have another approach location farther south of this proposed approach. That is the 76 feet from address 157, one south of there. But Road and Bridge realizes that this would take some possible reconfiguration of the Tractor Supply construction plans, but that might also be an option for your consideration. For the drawing that was submitted with the application, the proposed approach would be shared with both the Tractor Supply and Mr. Byler's proposed new parcel. The primary approach, which is under variance 5/2023, next another hearing, to the Tractor Supply store, it had a label on it that said potential future cross access, a potential access to the new parcel. And so once the Homestead Loop approaches are approved, Road and Bridge no longer has any jurisdiction over future use of that approach. So our goal is kind of to be proactive and ensure that the approaches provide what's needed for the Tractor Supply store, but it also could accommodate some future improvements on the other parcel and yet have the best safety measures for a road, for public, and the least impact on traffic. That's all I have for my staff report.
Okay. Are there any questions from Ben? Wally?
Go ahead.
Right here? Okay. Now would the applicant please step forward and give any opening statement?
My name is Jennifer Nylander, and I represent the developer, Extemker Development Company. We are a preferred developer for Tractor Supply store itself. The plan that Renee just reviewed with you has been under consideration with Mr. and Mrs. Byler for some time now. We are under a contract with them. Moving forward, once we resolve our driveways, we intend to then subdivide the property. Mr. and Mrs. Byler will retain the 2 acres, and we intend to develop the rest of it as a Tractor Supply store. Jim, did you want to say anything?
Not right now, I'm not sure what to say.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for me at this time?
I don't have any questions.
Okay. And the gentlemen that are on the phone with us are our engineers. I'm from Daphne, Alabama, so I was able to travel to be here today. Our engineers are also in Daphne, Alabama, and they were unable to travel today, which is why they're on the call. Thank you.
Michelle would probably like you to spell their names or whatever.
She wrote them down. I wrote them down.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I do have one follow-up question, I guess, or answer, is that one reason we wanted the north approach, or the northern driveway, is that we need water access from 3 Mile Water. So we're actually, the property closest to 95 that we're going to retain, the 2 acres, is actually going to own the land. The plan is to own the land of the road right-of-way on the north side of the property all the way to Homestead, because 3 Mile Water requires
30 feet.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
so we plan to retain that Yeah.
Yes, Jim, I'm sorry, I should have mentioned that. That northern access drive is shown as a potential cross-access because it is intended to be part of Jim's remaining property so that he will be allowed a water connection to the water on Homestead Loop. Unfortunately, the Tractor Supply store is unable to have a water connection based on our needs for fire suppression. Our plans involve a fire tank and a pump on the site. So we're not going to be connecting to the water at all now.
Oh, you're not gonna be connecting to 3 Mile Water?
No, we're digging a well.
Wow. Okay.
The 5/8 of an inch wasn't sufficient for fire suppression, therefore the tank is necessary. And due to the fact that our timelines don't match up with the water connection at this time for 3 Mile Water, we opted to go with the well. So we won't be utilizing any public infrastructure for that.
Okay.
Are you gonna have sprinklers inside the building?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
Now I open this hearing to public testimony. Please state your name and place of residence for the record. If you have any written material, please read it into the record and present it to the Commissioner's Deputy Clerk. We'll see how many people want to speak, but yeah. So,
Are we allowed to see the plan?
huh?
Are we allowed to see the plan of what's being presented?
Not, we're just doing the variances on the roads. We're not addressing that. On the
Well, I don't know where
roads.
the variance is that they're coming into. Like, are they coming from Highway 95?
Oh, no, no,
Are
no,
they coming out
no.
from Homestead?
Homestead Loop.
At the beginning
That's,
Homestead, in the
that's,
middle, at the
that's
end?
what Renee just stated was begin, or Homestead.
Yeah, but I don't know where on Homestead.
I can let you. Yeah, show on that one.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You need to make a copy of that. Yeah, so we can share it like this.
If,
Huh?
Almost
Yeah,
the
so we
middle,
can
but not
share it
quite.
like this. Like this, okay.
Okay.
So I think this gentleman down there wants to.
okay. Is there anyone present who would like to speak in favor of this application?
I do have a question. Could we explain what the goal is for water retention for runoff and also for sewage?
Are you asking me?
Well, whoever.
May I answer?
Yes, please.
Okay, great. I just want to follow the rules.
Well, the rules would be that we go through this and then you come back to me.
Okay, I'm happy to answer that. So we have a proposed storm drainage pond that will collect the water and snow, obviously, from both our potential Tractor Supply store and Jim's retained property at the intersection of Homestead Loop and what's the road coming off of the highway?
Hillcrest.
And Paul or Mike, whoever's on the phone, could you go into a little bit more discussion about the retention pond there, please?
Absolutely. Hopefully everyone can hear me okay. If not, then let me know. My name is Paul Marcinko, Jade Consulting. Like it was stated, we are the civil engineers for this project. On this plan that you're looking at, we have the proposed stormwater management area to the south of the parking lot. The site currently slopes to the south. This is the most logical location for that stormwater pond to collect the runoff. Anything in the rear would be piped to the front, and the pond itself can sheet flow to the pond. We have not completed the calculations for that yet, but once the meeting is complete and we have the driveway location approved, then we can proceed with our design of that stormwater management area.
Thank you. Does that answer?
One last question. Do we have adequate parking and handicap capability?
Yes, so that actually was presented at the meeting with the Planning and Zoning Board, and they reviewed our application, and part of the review process was, are we meeting parking requirements? And yes, we were meeting parking requirements, and we did have, I believe it was 3 or 4 handicap parking included in that.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, is there anyone who is uncommitted on this proposal and would like to speak? Seeing none, we'll move on. Is there anyone present who would like to speak in opposition to this application?
Yes, sir.
Say your name, please.
What's that?
You said your name.
Oh, my name is Cameron Smith. I reside at 157 Homestead Loop. I purchased the house on September 15th of 2022. There was a notification, I believe, that was sent out for zoning on October 5th. The county had not updated the deed information correctly, and so I was never given notification that I could basically voice concern for this. I am pursuing currently all legal means in order to get that corrected, as well as having it re-reviewed. Basically going out to public comment because there was a very limited amount of people that this was given out to. My chief concerns about the approach variances, and given this is my only time in which I can basically talk about why I do not want this to happen, is that frankly, I understand that Boundary County and what the members of the people that I'm talking to are most concerned about how can we increase the revenue for the county. In addition to perhaps the considerations of the public. As far as safety goes, that road is currently being used for recreation, people walking dogs, riding bicycles, and this and that. They also have kids around, and so the increased traffic would basically cause a safety hazard. In addition to a safety hazard, you would be looking at a decreased property value all the way around there. And so the amount of money in which you would be able to receive on property would be significantly diminished. Thirdly, the jobs in which the Tractor Supply Company will be bringing to the area will not be very high paying. And because of that, the amount of taxable revenue that you'll be getting off of that will be minimal. In addition to that, Boundary County does not have a tremendous amount of employees to give for this type of operation, and so they'd be pulling from Montana more than likely. If that's the case, again, Boundary County would not benefit. The other disagreements that I have with it is for my property itself is that I'd be having semi-traffic in the back of my backyard, which I'm not particularly happy about. I do realize when I purchased the property that there could be a business being put in there, which I have no reservations for, but I prefer it to be a local business and supporting local people rather than putting a large corporation in the area. Lastly, the way that this has been brought about, it does seem somewhat surreptitious because the amount of time in which was given out to make public comment was pretty limited. That is my opinion. But the way that the county has basically dropped the ball on letting the residents know that this was taking place, I feel does not give the public adequate notice to actually rally. Considering that most people have jobs and that times are tough, people have to go to work, and so I just want to bring that up also as an issue. Thank you for your time.
Is there anyone else?
I have a question. So what kind of wall will be between his house and the project? Like will it be a cement wall, wood fence, nothing?
That would be up to maybe us to discuss, and if they were good neighbors, they would put one up. But yeah, that would.
I'm gonna one more time defer to my engineers that are on the phone. Paul, can you speak to the division line between properties between the proposed Tractor Supply and the neighbor to the north of the access drive?
Yes, as y'all had mentioned or discussed the cross-access, the requirements of the local water district and how that relates to cross-access and our proposed lot split. I believe the question, and some of it broke up a little bit, the question was about a fence potentially between the two properties. Is that what was asked?
Between the property on the north and the property to the south, where the residential is right next to it.
Yes, I'm questioning what the question is exactly, what they're looking for. There's a 20-foot water easement that runs along the north side of that property that we cannot build within. There will be a retaining wall on the south side that will be on our property to make the grading work. So the site itself will actually be lower than the property to the north. But was the concern about a buffer between or potentially a fence?
Yes, it's about having a fence between the residential and the commercial property. if there would be a fence there, a privacy fence.
Jennifer, I'll let you commit to that whether or not. It certainly is a possibility to put a fence along that north property boundary. That would create, a physical buffer between the two properties, and then a 20-foot, the 20-foot easement would be there as well. So that's certainly a possibility.
Yes, okay, thank you for the explanation, Paul. So to answer your question, we can certainly put a landscape buffer or a fencing buffer, but there's going to be a 20-foot access road flag lot dividing the Tractor Supply demised parcel where the building ends, 20 feet of road, and then some kind of a landscape buffer, and then the neighbor's property. So that could either be a fence or a landscape buffer, to answer your question.
So you don't know if it's gonna be a wood fence or a concrete, like cinder block?
We prefer to stay away from cinder block and do some kind of a treated wood fence.
May I add something? In my property, I was planning on using that south facing for a solar installation. So if they put a giant privacy fence in there, I would not be able to do that. The other comment that I apologize for not bringing in there is that presumably this business would hurt other local businesses that already have duplicate inventories. And so the amount of tax revenue that you would get off of sales would be a net.
We're not here to address that.
Understood.
Yeah.
But I just wanted the public record.
Mhm.
And I just want to make one statement here. Our intention is to be good neighbors, and there are many times when we over landscape to be good neighbors. And we will certainly do what we can to protect the local neighbors, fences, landscape buffers, whatever the case might be.
I'm sorry, I don't trust a corporation. That needs to be in the stipulations.
Wait. Yeah, let's keep on topic here. Yeah.
I have a separate question. I'm Shane Flory, I own North Iowa Collision. I have signage on my building that so I can see from 95. Just curious about where the building might set, where that might block my signage, because I don't have access to the road signage.
Yeah, I understand that. So the front 2 acres of that entire parcel, Jim is retaining. Where the Tractor Supply store is actually pushed further away from the road. Yeah, I don't think that you're gonna have visibility. I don't think that you're gonna have visibility issues.
Put an X for the building.
Do you have something to oppose or?
I have a question.
Okay.
Is there a reason why they don't access traffic from Highway 95?
I'll defer that to Road and Bridge.
I can answer that, and I probably should have included it in this one we did with variance 5-2023 because it applied more. ITD sent a letter to us that they had given to Mr. Byler in 2020 that they had 4 reasons, current reasons as to why they will not allow access onto Highway 95. So all access had to come from Homestead Loop. So Tractor Supply asked as well with this one, and I verified with ITD if there'd been any changes or any other options that they have, and they said no. In fact, the little apron that is on the highway will be removed. So they have no choice but to access the parcel off of Homestead Loop.
Okay, can I have a follow-up question to that?
Sure.
In your report, you put that the estimated traffic or the calculated traffic level on Homestead Loop was around 600 cars a day or something to that effect.
Yes.
Is there any estimate on Hillcrest? Because that is gonna affect traffic at that 95 Homestead Loop intersection, because those are really tight, and you have a lot of traffic that goes to the dump, and that can affect access. In addition to snow removal, it took over a week to get Homestead Loop cleared in this last storm.
Oh,
Well, I drive on it every day.
Okay.
I'm not saying
I would
that.
second that.
I don't want to say that as a negative.
Right. If you're talking totally bare, clear,
No.
There was a lot of county like that.
And that's kind of where I was gonna go. Is it wasn't the only road.
Yes.
I mean, there was a lot of snow. I accept that, but it's still an issue if you plan on increasing traffic there. That increases risks when that is not looked at in addition.
Okay, so you were opposed to it.
I think so. I don't want to say I'm for or against. I'm just concerned
Okay.
because I do live near there, and I do have kids that go out to Homestead Loop. There's no sidewalks. It's not a city street where people can recreate safely on the side of the street. And I just think that if the variance is granted, I think that things like that ought to be considered / required or adjusted so that those things can be done safely.
Commissioner Burton?
Yes.
So our average traffic count from 2019 on Hillcrest was 1138. However, I would just like to state when we do our traffic counts, because of the intersections, we have it so that we know how many go on Homestead Loop, how many go on Hillcrest, how many are going to the highway. So we did that, take that into account when we were presenting that for them.
Linda?
I'm trying to understand the project. So from what I've heard today is Mr. Byler wants to separate it into 2 parcels or 3, because she drew on the map here where the actual property line will be, I guess. And so it seems like there's an empty piece of land at the top. Right.
This is not extra. This is where the retention pond is.
Oh, that's the pond. Oh,
And this is
okay. And then that's the section.
This is the shore going to the water.
Thank
So
you.
all of this, and this is Jim's. This is all traffic, the whole, this is all retention.
That's the pond.
That's
Okay.
right.
All right, got it. Thank you.
So I'm still stuck in a little confusion. Number one is, if you guys do this conditional use permit, I would recommend.
This is a variance.
Variant. I would recommend or ask or request that you guys definitely put in that stipulation that there is a buffer between residential.
Well, she already said there's gonna be a buffer.
But I'd like to see it in writing.
And everything.
Yeah.
It's stating the fact that, yeah.
Yeah, because I actually saw this happen in Spirit Lake where I moved from, where a storage unit came in. They said they were verbally going to put a fence up. 2 years later, there wasn't one. The child got hurt, blah, 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 right? And so it would be nice to make sure it's in writing. So that's number one.
But then we have.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Then we have someone that you're saying you don't want a fence because you're gonna put solar in. So then we're gonna have that fine line between how high are we gonna go with this fence or this privacy screen, that sort of thing. So,
Well, I don't want to get that detailed, but but I am concerned usually when there is residential right next to commercial, there tends to be traffic, unnecessary foot traffic going onto private property, et cetera, et cetera. So anyways, just a consideration. And then the other one is, this is more for road and bridge. Did you guys, I understand you don't want to plan for the future, but I've seen in cities, especially in Alabama, where future wasn't planned and streets end up getting really messed up. Did you guys consider doing a frontage road all the way to the intersection of the travel center? And that way the trash transfer station and
So maybe I'll just.
Okay.
Can I answer back? This variance hearing, they're very specific. This variance hearing is for this northern request off the Homestead Loop. Anything on the opposite side of the highway is a whole nother.
yes.
A whole nother.
And I understand that, but as a comment, as a person that plans on living here for a very long time, if we don't plan this stuff in the future, you know that travel center's coming in. There's no ignorance on that
That's on
end.
the other side of the road, and we're not addressing that today.
But aren't you going to have I guess you're not maybe I'm not clarifying myself correctly. You guys are right now trying to figure out how to get access onto that travel center. And
Not in this part.
This is the Tractor Supply.
okay, no, I'm talking just
That's
in,
a totally different issue. And we don't even have the information on that.
That's not on our agenda
That's
to
not on our
discuss.
agenda.
Why would you not put that on the agenda when we should be future planning?
Two different issues.
You do understand that the lack of future planning is going to mess the city, county up.
I understand that. I understand that, but that's a different issue than what we're dealing with today.
I'm sure they look at all that kind of stuff when they're planning this.
I mean,
That was some of our consideration points from Road and Bridge, some of the recommendations. And that was also why when we provide our staff report, we ask our other staff departments to give us any points, which planning and zoning provided for us. And the jurisdiction is per department. So like the conditional use permit, what can be done on that piece of property, that's planning and zoning and the commissioners.
Okay.
Road and Bridge has jurisdiction over the approaches. As far as the right-of-way goes, then it's out of our jurisdiction. So we each try to stay in our own departments.
So one last question. Do we have a county engineer that is creating a future plan? Because we have a lot of growth coming in.
no, we do not.
We don't have a county engineer, we have a county transportation plan and a capital use improvement plan, and we hire engineers to help us as we plan ahead.
Okay, thank you.
Which would be HMH.
Yes.
That's right.
Thank you.
We still have an economic development.
Yes, we also have that economic development director.
Is there any further comments? If not, I will close this hearing to additional testimony. And call-
I would like to make a comment.
Yes.
When it comes to commercial use, the land is commercial land.
Yes.
It's for commercial use. Trucks are going to go in and out there regardless. I didn't design it. I mean, I didn't put it in there. And I bought the property with that knowledge that it was going to be commercial use. And so to deny truck access or to deny the rightful access to the property is in, how do I say it? It's not commercial if it's not given the commercial facilities. So if the trucks can't get in and out right, if it can't be utilized right, then it should have been. And I'm not faulting nobody here. I'm just saying whatever happened is that it should have been residential property then. But we bought it with the commercial thought in mind, and therefore we feel that we have a right to have the legal and correct accesses to this property. The IDT doesn't want to give us access from the 95, but with the changes that are developing on the other side of the road with the service station going in and a light going in, maybe they will eventually. I'm hoping that I can reapply.
I see.
And in fact, I got another application from her, but I don't think now is the time to work on that one. But that would be nice if you could come in from that way if there was the turning lanes that it needs. What they said from that side was that it doesn't have the right turn lane or the left turn lane, and that I would have to pay for that if I would want to do that. Well, I can't afford the $500,000 or whatever it's going to take to put in those two lanes. And so now we're back to homestead. So we can't just have an island of land there that is nothing. We bought it with a commercial use thought, and so,
Turkey, yeah.
Never mind. No,
Okay.
you're good.
All right.
Was it also, are you taking into consideration for the additional people that I gather signatures from in the opposition for this as basically part of your decision-making process as well?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
For the record, how many signatures?
25.
Thank you.
If there are no further comments, now I will close this to testimony and for discussion amongst Nice. Thoughts, gentlemen?
So I have a couple of points I'd like to make addressing some of your concerns. In the past, there's been similar businesses here, smaller scale, that no longer exist. We had 3 different feed store, clothing store, farm supply stores here. So in the past, with a smaller population, we were able to support that many stores. I think that's my address to the potential of hurting other businesses. Wage concerns, my view is any job's a good job. It's better than no jobs. And decrease the property value, I think you might be looking at it. Here's a different way of looking at it, perhaps. That if this is becoming, and it is, zone commercial,
Sure.
that commercial property generally is worth more than residential. So likely, the property that you own now could go up. That's how I view it. So I would say it's the opposite of it's likely true. Revenue for the county is that has zero concern to me in this regard.
May I ask a question? So as far as your comment on that, I mean, I understand all jobs are good jobs, but if you look at the cost of living now in Bonners Ferry, do you think a $15 an hour job is going to allow someone to own a house or be successful in life?
That's a high wage for Bonners Ferry.
Right. We have no control over the wages.
I'm just being honest. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm moving here from Colorado. All right. And this community reminds me of my community 25 years ago before large corporations had shown up. The other part is that when large corporations basically come into an area, while they say many things that sound nice, in practical application, when they run out the small businesses, they're also taking the opportunity out for that. So, and the reason I'm bringing this up again, sir.
If you're gonna talk, then I have to reopen this up and close down our talk, because during our discussion, then,
That's
so
fair.
I can reopen it up if you have more to say,
Okay.
and that's fine.
Okay.
So my points were addressed to you. Answer questions that were here earlier.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Sorry for the misunderstanding.
Newbie.
Yeah, I mean, and forgive me for my lack of understanding of how the process goes. It's my first
believe
time.
me, this is, the
Okay.
person that was sitting here ran this, had it down to a T. And
Okay.
this is my first one, so I'm not gonna say.
So we're okay.
Yeah,
I'm
I'm just trying to keep the boss happy over there.
understood. Understood. And I guess, the comment that I would make is that, the area that I'm coming from, the suicide rate is now 10 times the national average. The small businesses don't really exist anymore. There's only large businesses that exist. And so the opportunity for people for upward mobility is very limited. I do understand that the land was zoned commercial, and I have no problem with commercial property going in there. But again, it's more what type of businesses are we inviting within to Boundary County, and whom is owning it. And, ultimately that will kind of decide the fate for this area. And I myself I'm not looking at my house as an investment so that I can just hightail out of here and pocket the money. The reality is I'd like to live here. And I too would like to open up a business here. But the business that I'd like to open up would basically allow people to buy a house someday, not just rent.
Okay. Is there any additional comment since I opened this back up? Okay.
Thank you for your time.
Oh, I'm gonna close this one more time. Is there any more discussion? Paul? Yeah.
I have a question for Renee, but I can't find it. The county's proposal was.
Pardon?
What was the county's proposal? For this beach?
We would like to see a shared approach towards the south.
So-
At
Yeah.
that 330-foot mark.
Yes, okay, I found it.
I was not aware of the water issue. I know about the piece of property that has to touch doesn't require a road now as well.
Yeah.
If it does, we had not been made aware of that. So that would definitely put a different light on that location.
Yeah. The one thing, I know where you're coming from when you're talking about having businesses come in. As a commissioner, we're here to also protect our county from litigation. And we can't just say, we don't want this, and not allow it, type of a thing.
It's fine.
Then you go into litigation. So, and that's what's happening.
I understand, but I mean, if the county didn't follow the process to notify me and there was a clerical mistake and I choose litigation, how does that work?
It should have been notified everyone within 330 feet.
I already talked to zoning and that they understood that there was a mistake that was made.
That was the mistake that was made?
Yes.
Okay.
But that has the previous, that has nothing to do with the variance for the road. It has to do with the building itself, correct?
No, that's for the
variance
for the road.
No,
Yeah.
no.
You.
Can I speak?
Yes.
Okay, so conditional use permit was mailed out to everyone within 300 feet. According to Mr. Smith and Planning and Zoning, he did not receive the notice, but planning said they sent it to who they had of record. For our road standards, we sent Mr. Smith and everybody in 300 feet a notice.
And I'll corroborate that. They did send a note. Yeah.
So the road standard variance, the people that should have received the notice that we understood and our assessor's map shows us received it. He's questioning the notices that were sent out by planning and zoning for the conditional use permit.
I've already confirmed with planning and zoning that they sent it to the incorrect people.
I see.
Yes. And I will pursue that to the fullest extent.
Okay.
Did you open it back up for comment? Because if you did, then I'll make one.
I'll open it up back up for comment.
Okay, so everything on the east side of Homestead Loop, all the way even past the intersection of the Moonshadow Road, is commercially zoned currently. You can have some residential in commercial zoning, but it's still, that is all zoned commercially. So the chances are that commercial is going to be put in pretty much everything, probably eventually on the east side of Homestead Loop. Just
Right.
throwing that out there.
Okay. Thank you. If there be no further discussion, I'll call for a motion, if you already make one. I personally, this is my personal opinion, I would like to table this till next Monday at 2:30. So,
To get more information?
yep.
Okay. I move to table or continue the hearing to January 23rd at 2:30 in this room to allow further consideration of the proposed variance or to allow review and approval of written findings and decision.
Do I have a second? Seeing none?
I think I want to ask some more questions.
Okay. I'll open this back up.
Sorry, it's a lot to go over here. We have some people in the room here. So this is a question for you guys and for somebody that has the answer that I don't have. The road to the north, can we put it in there that a fence would be required?
Yes.
The gentleman stated he didn't want a fence.
That's the kicker.
I understand that. I'll just state this, there's no way to keep everybody happy. I mean, that's just the way of the world.
We could talk about that, but I mean, if there is no impassable and that there is going to be a requirement to get this done, but again, I don't want it in the back of my, I don't want anyways.
You don't want the business period.
Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah.
So I'll make a motion to table until after the hearing, the next hearing.
On Monday,
No,
at 2:30.
Directly after. Can we do it that way? Just revisit it, and then we can maybe table it again, if need be.
I don't think we have time.
Well, I'm time. Okay.
May I ask, what additional information would you like us to provide to you?
It would be nice if you could have some options for that barrier, as far as the fence or that sort of, some options there on what you're, to be, as you say, good neighbors,
Okay.
that sort of thing.
Can you come back and present Monday?
I'll have to ask my husband if he can live without me for another week.
She's from Alabama.
I understand that,
Just
that's why
for the day.
I'm struggling with this.
Listen, if I can't attend in person, I can certainly, I'll be on a conference call.
And if not, if you just had the documents or had the,
Of course.
sent up and everything.
Can you control what happens out of our right of way? Putting the fence along that, as far as the variance?
Out of
I'm
it,
asking.
there's stipulations. We can make a stipulation that for that, for that,
Okay.
where the water line's gonna be and the road.
Can they put the water line somewhere else? Does it have to be up along that side?
Yeah, because they have to have 30 feet to access into 3 Mile Water.
But I
And,
mean, can they put it across the middle, an easement across the
oh no,
south end up along the highway?
yeah.
I'm just-
You have to have ownership
Little
of 3
things.
Mile Water. You have to have ownership for where your line goes, not just an easement.
Yep,
Sorry.
thank you.
Yeah, there was no other way for us, there was no other place for our engineers to do it, because we have to give Jim direct access, or whoever Jim's property will be, direct access to the water connection, which is on the homestead loop. And it can't run through the Tractor Supply property.
Yep.
One thing I would like to say, it's my understanding, I'm not 100% sure how Tractor Supply is gonna do the elevations on the property. And I think that's critical in the variances or in the right-of-ways or in the road driveways is the elevations. Is it gonna be steep? Is it gonna be flat? How's it gonna be? But it's my understanding that that upper line there, where the water line is gonna be, that upper road would be lower, would be taken down quite a bit. And so Mr. Smith, is that right? His concern about having a high fence there, I don't know that it would be a high fence because how would that look? I can't picture it, but how would that look if the road was 5 foot lower than the bank?
That's a question we can direct to our engineers that are on the phone.
Okay.
Paul, did y'all catch that?
Yeah, I didn't know how to jump in and, if additional information is needed, then that's fine. We can provide our current grading plan, if necessary. But I know that everyone's looking for a fence buffer, but then there's also concern about that fence affecting solar. The gentleman that just spoke is correct. Our delivery area, where the asphalt's shown, is actually going to be lower than the property. So the height of that fence, we can provide whatever height is necessary to provide the buffer. We could also do some planting in there that would provide a vegetative buffer. This is something that we've agreed to in the past on other projects where, we may vote, the vote might approve with the condition that we'll work with staff and work with neighboring property owners to provide that buffer as necessary. And if that condition is included, then we absolutely have to meet that requirement.
Okay. Thank you.
I'll make a motion to table till next Monday.
Okay.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
hearing closed?
Yes, the hearing is closed. Now we'll move on to the next.
It's to my YouTube channel, and then I'll email it to you, okay?
Very good, thank you.
Are you gonna listen to the next one? It's
What's
the
the next
property
one?
just south of it.
Oh, really? What's going on there?
Okay, here we go.
It's the highest
I'll read
property.
this all. Before we begin, I will briefly review the procedure we will follow for the public hearing. Please remember, this is an official proceeding prescribed by Idaho Code. This proceeding is taped as part of the official public record. We ask that each speaker state your name and place of residence before giving testimony. The hearing will begin with the applicant's statement, which in this case is that the applicants are James Byler and Jennifer Nylander. Then the floor will be open to allow the comments from members of the public. First from those who are in favor of the proposal, next from those who are neither in favor or opposed to the proposal, and finally from those who are opposed to the proposal. After each person speaks, members may ask questions of that speaker. After each member of the public has had the chance to speak, the applicant will be allowed to make a closing statement to review any concerns, answer any questions, or clarify the proposal. Again, members may ask questions. Once this process is concluded, I will close the hearing and no further testimony will be taken. At this time, the commission members will discuss the application and work toward reaching a decision. Are there any questions of this procedure? Now, open the public hearing for the county commissioners to consider road and bridge road standards variance application 5-2023, an application for variance to Boundary County Road Standards Ordinance 2020-2 regarding a proposed approach location requested by applicant James Byler and Jennifer Nylander. This is a proposal upon which the county commissioners will render a decision. Present are county commissioners, staff members, they'll all be there. Is there a member of the commission who has a conflict of interest and cannot participate in this hearing? If so, please step down. Ben?
No.
Wally? No. Seeing none, we'll move on. I will ask for a staff report.
Okay, so this is a road standards variance for a proposed approach location located on Homestead Loop. Applicants are James Byler and Jennifer Nylander. This is for an approach that doesn't meet road standards, section 3.3B, which sets 330 feet for distance from an existing access or the intersection or two public road right-of-ways on collector or arterial roads. Homestead Loop is a minor collector, so the 330 feet requirement applies. Road standards section 3.3F sets site distance for new approaches entering arterial or collector roads at a minimum of 300 feet and a minimum site triangle of 40 feet. So the proposed approach requires that verification. Again, you have your same aerial vicinity map. The proposed use for this approach is a primary approach to the proposed Tractor Supply store. The Tractor Supply store to be located on a new proposed parcel that will need to go through planning and zoning parcel division process. For planning and zoning, the zone district designation is commercial light industrial, no density minimum, but it has to meet planning and zoning's ordinance. Surrounding zone district designation is commercial light industrial, rural residential 5-acre density, industrial with no density. Surrounding land uses residential, commercial, industrial, and agricultural mix. The zoning overlay, there is a airport overlay area. There were no wetlands and it's not within the city's area of impact. There's no special flood hazards. And So the two provisions are section 3.3B for the 330 feet and 3.3F for the site distance. Description of the variance proposed. The proposed access is located 280 feet north of the center line of Hillcrest. The proposed access is located 415 feet south of address 157. The proposed access is requested to be a primary access. However, a second access is being requested 339 feet north of this proposed location. And Exhibit 2 shows those. I tried to show both variances, though we have to deal with them individually. Options to commissioners are approval with condition, or denials. The consideration point is, would Road and Bridge have granted this except for the variance? So this location, Road and Bridge would not have approved this proposed location, but we would have provided a recommended location with justification that would meet the needs of everyone involved. And we'll go through that when we get to the staff comments. Average daily traffic count was 686 in 2019. There is 300 feet of sight distance, and there is a sight triangle. Engineering studies, you could require a traffic impact study. It may not be warranted. Topography, again, Homestead Loop begins as a 150-foot straight road, and then it curves to the north and the east and gradually starts to climb as it goes north. It's a chip sealed road, 35 miles an hour. Additional traffic control, possibly a stop sign located on the southbound lane of Homestead Loop prior to Hillcrest is a consideration. Also, a stop sign required at the primary approach to control traffic leaving the traffic supply store prior to entering Homestead Loop. Might be a good consideration. Public comment. So public comment is attached as Exhibit 5 and summarized below. It's the same public comment from our previous variance, so unless commissioners would like me to go through it, I will just leave it as is. It is still in there for you. As far as staff comments go, planning and zoning provided the same summary of comments that they had went through the conditional use permit. It had been approved. The only reason they even had to go through that process was the square footage. It was not the use of the piece of property. Addressing coordinator had a question regarding if this location is approved, the proposed one, will it change the existing address of 87 Homestead Loop, which was assigned with planning and zoning application 20-0170. So, Road and Bridge comments. We would like to require the south approach to meet the 330-foot distance from the center line of Hillcrest for the following reasons. First, the approach would meet safety requirements for traffic control at the intersection with Hillcrest and also US 95. The close proximity to the intersection at Hillcrest Road, which provides access to the county's solid waste site, access to 4 subdivisions as well as other residences. The average daily traffic count for Hillcrest Road was 1138 in 2019. Between US 95, the stop sign on Homestead Loop at US 95, and the Hillcrest Road center line, there's only 90 feet. Keeping the proposed approach as far north as possible would add footage for vehicles, including truck traffic. There are concerns from Road and Bridge with the blocking the intersection at Hillcrest and traffic backing up on the US 95 turn lane. And then lastly, Road and Bridge and ITD worked with Mr. Byler on a previous commercial access permit. Due to the location of ITD's right-of-way and the angle, and I included that in your Exhibit 2 with the photos so that you could see what that odd right-of-way layer was. Road and Bridge worked with ITD, and they agreed to allow Road and Bridge to use the center line of Hillcrest as the point to measure from, knowing that if we measured 330 feet, it would meet our ordinance for safety. Road and Bridge felt that location would be a safe location in ITD. The additional right-of-way that ITD approved, not including in a measurement for us, was 125 feet. Road and Bridge really felt that that was an acceptable balance between measurements and where approaches could be located, and yet keep traffic as far north of that intersection as we possibly could. As far as a couple of points for consideration, there is a note on their drawing that the proposed access, that's the one that's showing 284 feet from the Hillcrest center line. It says it could also be used for potential future cross access going to that front parcel as well. So we really were wondering to consider if you approve it the 330 feet and you use that approach for access that could access that front one as well, you're moving it as far as you can from that access point. Another point to consider is Road and Bridge doesn't know the proposed use of the new parcel being retained, and it is zoned commercial. So this would keep traffic access again at that one more centralized location. Once Homestead Loop approaches are approved, then we don't have really jurisdiction over the approaches. And I think the rest of our considerations you kind of have already as far as the signs go.
Are there any questions for staff? Paulie? See Ben nodding, he said no. So with this applicant, then you will just have one primary. Yeah.
Right, one primary.
But then the water is still an issue for,
And you, so this is just separate for this one. So if a proposed location of variance was granted for the first application, you could still have this primary one. We would just really request that it's at that 330 foot mark, which is a difference of 46 feet.
yeah.
The more traffic you have as you go north on that road, if you could keep up from the curve and the intersection with Hillcrest and the intersection with the highway, it would just make more sense,
Mm-hmm.
safety wise.
Right.
And I guess that's one thing, I guess I didn't really read that, but maybe just for the engineers on the phone too. If that 46-foot approach to the north that we're recommending, we realize that they're gonna have to revise their plans somewhat, but we just really felt that the benefits would outweigh that revision. But we do realize that.
I see. Just wait. Now will the applicant please step forward and give any open testimony? What you say that? Yeah.
I'm still Jennifer Nylander.
Yeah.
From Daphne, Alabama. I represent the developer, Hicks Seneca. who is under contract with Tractor Supply Store on Mr. Byler and Mrs. Byler's location. I would just like to add that we have been searching in Bonner's Ferry for a site since 2016. We've looked at and tried to get under contract with many different parcels of property here. And this is the one that works the best for our uses and also Mr. and Mrs. Byler's future needs as well. Again, I will reiterate, I represent the developer. We develop all over the country. We have built over 300 Tractor Supply stores. Our intent is not to create controversy. We want to be good neighbors. We're here for the long run with y'all, and we appreciate you hearing us.
I don't know a whole lot about Tractor Supply Company. Do you have like local, someone in this area that would then run it, have it, own it,
Yes.
and then it's a franchise?
So that's a great question. So while I can't really speak to Tractor Supply's operations because we're going to be the landlord, we will not be operating it. We'll be operated according to Tractor Supply's operational standards. Having said that, Tractor Supply also wants to be a good neighbor in the communities where we work. A good paying job depends on where you are in the country. They pay competitive local wages to their hourly employees. It's my understanding that this store will be intended to have a full-time store manager and an assistant manager. I'm not familiar with the pay scale, but generally speaking, they're known as a good employer. So typically what happens is once we're under construction, Tractor Supply will come in, their store operations will come in, and they'll conduct on-site interviews. They're not bringing in people from Montana to run this store. They will hire from the local community.
You do know our unemployment rate is around 2 to 3%. It's actually a challenge.
It will be, but it's a challenge anywhere.
Yes,
In
it is.
the country. I mean, I live in an area right now that is going through a population explosion as well. So again, I can't speak to Tractor Supply's operations, but I did just want to address the gentleman's concerns somewhat to an extent.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any questions from YouTube for the applicant?
Yes. Can that be moved 46 feet to the north?
Let's ask our engineers.
Can the road be moved 46 feet to the north?
Hey, good afternoon. This is Paul Marcinko, Jade Consulting. Obviously, we spoke about the previous application, and I know that they're separate applications. They were related, obviously, to the same site. My comment would be just to start off with why it was originally designed at the location that it was, just so y'all understand why we landed on that location. 284 feet is what we have shown on the plan that's before you. The driveway at that location would be at the lowest point on the site, other than what the stormwater pond would be. That would allow us to come up into the site at a more gradual rate. Tractor Supply does have requirements, and many businesses that you visit every day, I'm sure, have requirements as well for grade changes in their site, in their parking area. ADA compliance is something that's nationally and federally regulated, but the parking lot itself, nobody wants to park in a parking lot that's at 7, 8, 10%. So we try to design our sites so the driver will come in gradually, so that the driver is comfortable as they drive into the site, and the truck can get into the site. So generally speaking, that's why the driveway is where it's located. I would think that we could adjust somewhat to the north, maybe very easily get to a 300-foot distance, and I would just like to throw that number out as a consideration. The 330 would likely require us to flip the driveway to the other approach in front of the store, where you see the ADA parking. We typically don't like the truck traffic to go directly in front of the main entrance. But if the driveway is split and done that way to meet roads and bridges concern, then we certainly will look at that. But just note that the truck traffic and all the people entering the site will be coming in right at the main entrance of where the ADA parking is. So that's our thought process and how we landed on that during our grading design process.
Very good, thank you. I'll wait. I'm gonna try to run this thing exactly where I'm supposed to. Now I open the hearing to public testimony. Please state your name and place of residence for the record. If you have any written material, please read it and to the record and present it to the commissioner, deputy clerk. Is there anyone present who would like to speak in favor of this application? Seeing none, we'll move on.
Yes.
Oh, yes, so, do you want to, now it's your turn. Raise your hand. Yes, Jim.
I would just like to say that, the reason for the driveway location where it is now, is a good place. But for what they want, the upper driveway is where they want to bring their trucks in, is my understanding. They want to bring their trucks and stuff in up there, and there won't be a lot of traffic up there as far as traffic, car traffic. But having said that, our lot on the east side is going to, so we're giving them permission to use our road, and they will be giving us permission to use the lower road. So the idea is the lower road would probably, I don't even know for sure how it looks. I didn't see the whole plan yet, but if the lower road is too far north, it sort of eliminates the need for the upper road or whatever. It doesn't fit into the plan. So by going further south with the lower road, it makes our access further from their buildings and at some location through their parking lot, and then go up around, and then we can also exit. We'll exit on the upper side. I don't know if that answers your question, but anyway, I guess that what I felt like was important for you to know is that wish we had a blackboard here, but for the people who come up on Homestead, they'd have to, and they'd use that driveway that's there now, they'd have to double back, we would, and also, the people that come into the parking lot would have to double back and go along Homestead again, and then go back up again. And the idea is to make if I'm right, the idea is to make a nice loop through there, and, yeah, I think that's.
I understand. Is there anyone who is uncommitted on this proposal and would like to speak? Yes,
I just need clarification. So Tractor Supply is proposing an entrance at 280 feet,
84.
284 feet, okay. And then they want a second one at 415 feet south of this gentleman's home. Am I understanding that right? So there's two entrances.
The one would be north and one would be at the 284.
Oh, the second one would be 390 feet.
Yes, that's the one on the north one.
Okay, and then,
And that's to access 3 Mile Water. Because they need that 30 feet to access, to get 3 Mile Water to that second parcel that Jim is going to have.
okay, and then what's the 125 feet? I didn't understand that one when she was reading that. She said road and bridge wants 330 feet approach, not 284 feet, and then she mentioned something about 125 feet. And I didn't understand.
Yes.
You want me to answer?
Yes.
So road and bridge, so this is the picture I included for them. This dotted line right here, clear across. This is ITD's actual right-of-way line.
Okay,
And our ordinance, when I read it, said 330 feet from an existing access or the intersection or 2 public road right-of-ways on a collector.
okay.
So ITD could remind Road and Bridge, you should be measuring from this center point here to go up to meet your 330 feet. Because of the way this is, and they realized all of our growth, they allowed us to go back to the center line of Hillcrest.
Oh.
So 125 feet from the center of that to the center of that.
I see. Okay, so they backed up 125
Yes.
feet from what was normally in the books.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else that is uncommitted?
Aye.
Yes, thank you.
So I'm not sure if this is the right stage, but can we still just make sure we consider the fencing between residential and commercial? Just want to put that in whether this is the right stage or not, because I'm kind of a little confused at this point.
Previous variance.
Right, but on this property too, for the future.
That would come in later.
Okay.
There's no residential that buffers the south road.
And there's no residential on that
South
end?
Road?
Okay.
Oh,
There's
no.
no residential.
Oh, it's an, okay, sorry, I apologize. Okay.
So they're talking-
You're right, I'm not even looking at a map, thank
Talking
you.
about that one, the first one was that one. No.
Right. Okay. So it's cornered, okay. Sorry about that.
Yes, sir.
I'll consider myself in the
Okay.
not yes
Say
and
your
not
name.
no. Jonathan Hansen. I live on Heights Loop. The only thing I asked that you guys consider would be, again, the traffic flow things. I think she was talking about stop signs. I heard a possible stop sign there at Hillcrest, on the north side of Hillcrest. That almost needs to be a stop sign anyway now.
I agree.
And then, of course, traffic flow for this one and the one on the north, stop signs coming out. And just, I don't know, I don't have as much input, I guess, on the southern entrance. But, so yeah, that's my, not yes, but not no.
Okay. Would you like to speak again, Lindsay?
No, I was just brushing
Oh,
my hair.
okay. Try not leaving anyone out. All right. Is there anyone present who would like to speak in opposition of this application? Okay.
I have some questions about this as well. Is this the appropriate time to ask questions?
Yeah.
Okay. So, in the past, has there been approach variances have been asked on Homestead Loop by Mr. Byler?
Has there been in the past?
Yes.
I would not know. No,
No?
for this piece, no.
No.
No, not
Okay. I guess to kind of reiterate my concerns again is the increased traffic on that area. Basically, that intersection is already kind of a mess. And again, to also mirror the sentiment, and again, I do understand that we live in an area that gets snow. Again, I come from a state that gets a lot of snow too, so I get it.
Were you on the east side or west side?
West side,
West side?
from Glenwood Springs.
Where?
Glenwood Springs.
Oh, yeah. I
So,
lived down in Kremlin for a while.
okay, very cool. Essentially, I understand that there are challenges at times to get out a snow crew and remove all of the snow, but to address the traffic that would be basically coming off of Hillcrest and then also coming up now north of there as well, it can already be a challenge. And so if, they are trying to corner the market and get as much traffic as they can get in there, again, it will become a safety concern that people will not be able to use Homestead Loop for anything else but driving. I do understand that the area is zoned commercial, so I'm not fighting that by any means. But again, it's the amount of semi-traffic and other traffic that would be coming into the area that would drastically change the workflows. And also, I understand that you're saying in the previous comment that you may see an increase in value of the house because it is zoned commercial. But I feel that a lot of the gravitas for the area is because of the quiet, neighborly, environment, which, can raise a family. And so if you put something like that in and there's a lot of traffic and you basically create that kind of zone over there, like that does diminish that value in my opinion, okay? So again, I think that there are a lot of safety concerns in which you brought up with that and that, this is the appropriate time to have that discussion. Again, not all commercial things that go in there have to have tremendous amounts of traffic, if that makes sense. And presumably this would do a lot of traffic. The other question I have is that for the other property they're talking about, I don't know if it's part of the conversation.
It probably, no.
Well, let me ask if I could, please.
Yes.
So, does Mr. Byler already own the 6 or 3 mile water rights to that property? Is that already a thing, or is that something you'd be looking to buy into?
that's really not part of this conversation.
Okay,
Yeah, we were talking about the variance.
okay,
So,
very good. And I guess also playing the record that there have been all the other people voicing the concern that I've talked to about not wanting that, so I want their voices also to be recognized.
okay.
Thank you.
We'll come back to you, Jim. Okay. We'll come back to you. All right. If there's no one else that wants to speak in opposition, then I'll open it up to Jim to, rebuttal that or answer your question.
Sure.
I wasn't necessarily going to answer his question, except maybe address its safety concern.
Okay.
And this is something that Road and Bridge probably doesn't want to hear, but the road is kind of narrow there. And I don't know if there'd be a possible, if there will be or could be or should be or whatever, a widening of the road there, at least up to the first driveway. Maybe even the second, I don't know. But something for consideration. It's not a, it would address the safety concern because it is pretty narrow. I was looking right at the curve there. If two semis would meet right on that curve there, one would have to stop to let the other one go past. I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Right. All right. If there are no further comments, I will close this hearing into additional testimony and call for a decision among members and discussion. Discussion, Ben.
Yeah, a couple things to discuss with you and for those listening. I would say my opinion right now is probably going to be tabled and moved to next week, be my opinion. Questions I'd like to have answered is how many trucks are expected to be coming in and out of there generally? I would like to see a plan, if there could be one, to move that road as far north as possible to meet that 330 foot criteria. And that's all I have.
Ollie?
Well, I agree. I'd like to know how far north they can move.
Okay.
I would table till next week.
Michelle would probably
So the other one is at 2:30. So I don't know if you wanted.
3:15.
Sure.
Yeah, let's do 3:15. No, and everything. Yeah.
That was a motion.
Yes, I'll make, give me a motion. Can I get a second? On table? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, I guess we'll see you all next week.